Kevin bought a house in 2006. By 2009, he owed $340,000 on a home worth $180,000. He did everything right. That was the problem. 3 blocks away, his neighbor Sandra was signing paperwork for her third investment property. The loan officer never asked for proof of income. Nobody asked Sandra anything, actually, because in 2006, nobody needed to ask. The machine just kept running. And here's what nobody told Kevin, or Sandra, or the 8 million Americans who lost their jobs when it all stopped. The machine is running again. Same gears, same noise, different label on the box. My name is Jack, and today we're going to walk through exactly what happened in 2008. Not the Hollywood version, not the textbook version, the version that shows you what it actually felt like to be a normal person when the floor disappeared. And then we're going to look at what's happening right now, side by side, and let you decide if it looks familiar. Stay until the end, because the part that should scare you most isn't the banks, it's something much closer to home. Let's start with Kevin. Kevin is 34 in 2006, works in logistics in Columbus, Ohio. Married, 1 kid, another on the way. He's been saving for 5 years for a down payment. He is not a speculator. He is not flipping houses. He just wants a place to raise his family. His mortgage broker tells him he qualifies for a $340,000 loan. Kevin thinks that sounds like a lot. The broker smiles and says everyone qualifies for this much right now. Rates are low, prices only go up. This is just how it works. Kevin signs. Sandra, 3 blocks away, is 41. She's seen the HGTV shows. She's watched her cousin double his money flipping condos in Florida. She's not going to miss this. She buys her first investment property in 2004, then a second in 2005, then a third in 2006. No income verification required, just a signature and a dream. By 2007, Sandra owns 4 properties and has almost no equity in any of them. And then the music stops. Here's what they never teach you about 2008. It didn't start with banks. It started with a simple idea that everyone believed so completely that questioning it felt crazy. The idea was this: home prices always go up. Not sometimes, not usually, always. And for decades, it was basically true. Through recessions, through wars, through everything, American home prices drifted upward. It was the safest bet in the country. So the entire financial system built itself on top of that belief. Banks started lending to people who couldn't afford the loans, because if prices always go up, it doesn't matter if the borrower defaults. The bank just takes the house back, sells it for more than the loan, and everyone's fine. Lenders started creating loans with teaser rates, low payments for the first 2 years, then a massive jump. The idea was that by the time the rate adjusted, the borrower could refinance because their home was worth more. Always. Then Wall Street got involved. Banks packaged these mortgages into bundles, thousands of loans wrapped together and sold to investors as safe, high-yield products. Rating agencies stamped them AAA. Pension funds bought them. Retirement accounts held them. The whole world was, without knowing it, betting on American home prices going up forever. And then, slowly at first, they didn't. In 2006, home prices in some markets started to flatten. A few started to dip. Borrowers with adjustable rates hit their reset date. Their payments jumped, they couldn't refinance because their home wasn't worth more anymore. They couldn't sell for a profit, they couldn't make the payment. They defaulted. And because thousands of those mortgages were bundled together and sold to investors worldwide, one defaulting homeowner in Ohio didn't just hurt his bank. It hurt a pension fund in Norway. It hurt a retirement account in Japan. It hurt a money market fund your parents thought was as safe as cash. By September 2008, the entire global financial system was holding assets built on a belief that turned out to be wrong. And it all came apart in about 6 weeks. Kevin lost his job in October 2008 when his company cut 30% of its workforce. He missed 2 mortgage payments. By 2010, he was in foreclosure on a house he'd done everything right to buy. Sandra lost all 4 properties and filed for bankruptcy in 2009. 8 million Americans lost their jobs. 5 million lost their homes. $13 trillion in household wealth evaporated. And the people who built the machine, most of them were fine. Now here's where I need you to pay attention, because what I'm about to show you isn't a prediction, it isn't fear-mongering, it's a side-by-side comparison, and I want you to draw your own conclusions. Pattern number 1, the belief that prices only go up. In 2006, everyone believed prices only went up. Today, a version of that belief has attached itself to a different asset. Between 2020 and 2022, the median American home price jumped nearly 45% in 2 years, the fastest increase ever recorded. Buyers waived inspections, bought sight unseen, paid $100,000 over asking price in cash just to win. The belief? Prices only go up. Sound familiar? Now, prices in many markets are cooling, some are falling, and millions of buyers who stretched everything to get in are sitting on homes they couldn't afford to sell even if they wanted to. Pattern number 2, loans that require almost nothing. In 2006, Sandra got a mortgage with no income verification. Today, we don't have that. The post-2008 reforms closed most of those doors. But something else opened. Buy now, pay later. BNPL. You've seen it everywhere, at checkout, on your phone, in your email. Split any purchase into 4 easy payments. No credit check, no interest, just tap and own it. The total amount Americans owe on BNPL loans has exploded. And here's the part nobody's tracking carefully. Most of these loans don't show up on credit reports, which means a person can be drowning in BNPL debt and their credit score still looks fine. Lenders making decisions on incomplete information. Borrowers holding more debt than anyone can see. Where have we heard that before? Pattern number 3, the bundle. In 2006, Wall Street bundled bad mortgages and sold them as safe products. Today, something similar is happening in a corner of the market most people have never heard of: private credit, also called private debt. It's a $2 trillion market where non-bank lenders make loans to companies, outside the traditional banking system, outside most regulations, and with far less transparency than a public bond. Pension funds are pouring money into it. Retirement accounts are being exposed to it through funds they barely understand. The loans inside these products are to companies with weak credit, high debt loads, and in some cases, very little ability to survive a real downturn. Bundled, rated as safer than they are, and sold to people who trust the label on the box. The box just has a different name now. Pattern number 4, the consumer is tapped out. In 2008, the crisis hit hardest because American consumers were already stretched. Today, total U.S. credit card debt has crossed $1.2 trillion for the first time in history. Delinquency rates on credit cards and auto loans are rising, and not slowly. The personal savings rate has collapsed from a pandemic high of nearly 33% to under 4%. Kevin in 2026 isn't buying his third investment property. He's just trying to cover rent with a credit card that's already at 28% interest. And that's actually more dangerous, because in 2008, at least people had home equity they could theoretically tap. Today's version of Kevin has nothing left to tap. This is the part I promised you, the part that's not about banks or Wall Street. It's about what happens to normal people, people like Kevin, when the cycle turns. Because here's what 2008 actually felt like from the inside. It didn't feel like a financial crisis at first, it felt like your neighbor's problem. In early 2008, most Americans knew the housing market was soft. They'd heard about subprime. They figured it was someone else's issue, the people who'd overextended, the speculators, the irresponsible ones. Kevin didn't think it was his problem either. He had a stable job, he'd put 10% down. He wasn't Sandra. Then his company lost a major contract, not because of the housing market directly, but because the company's bank had tightened lending so they couldn't bridge a cash flow gap, so they cut headcount. Kevin's job disappeared 3 steps removed from a mortgage he'd never heard of. That's the thing about financial crises that nobody explains. They don't just hit the people who made the bad bets. They travel through the economy like a current through water, and they find everyone. The restaurant near Kevin's office that lost half its lunch crowd when the logistics company downsized. The daycare that lost 3 families when the restaurant cut its staff. the landlord whose tenants couldn't pay rent because the daycare closed. One bad mortgage in Florida eventually reached a daycare worker in Ohio. And right now, today, the connections are tighter than they were in 2008. Gig work has replaced stable employment for millions of Americans. That means the buffer between a financial shock and a missed rent payment is thinner than ever. Remote work has decoupled housing markets from local economies in ways we've never tested under stress. People move to cities based on remote work assumptions that companies are now reversing. And social media has made bank runs possible in hours instead of days. SVB, Silicon Valley Bank, collapsed in 48 hours in 2023, partly because depositors coordinated a withdrawal on group chats faster than any regulatory response could move. The system is more connected, which means when something goes wrong, it travels faster. Here's what Kevin told me. And by Kevin, I mean the version of Kevin that exists in every family that lived through 2008 and came out the other side. He said, nobody rang a bell. There was no moment where the news said, the crisis starts now, prepare accordingly. It just arrived. And by the time it was obvious, the options were already gone. So what do you do with that? You don't panic. Panic is what turns a downturn into a catastrophe for regular people. Panic is selling your investments at the bottom. Panic is making permanent decisions based on temporary information. What you do is the boring stuff, the stuff that feels unnecessary until it's the only thing that saves you. First, you build the buffer. 3 to 6 months of expenses in cash, not invested, not in crypto, cash, in a high-yield savings account earning real interest while it waits. If everything is fine, the buffer costs you nothing. It just sits there earning 4%. If everything is not fine, that buffer is the difference between making clear decisions and making desperate ones. Second, you know what you actually owe. Write it down. Every debt, the balance, the rate, the minimum payment, the actual monthly cost. Most people have a vague sense of their debt. Vague sense doesn't protect you. The number does. Third, you do not stretch for the asset. Kevin stretched for the house in 2006 because the broker told him he qualified for that much. Qualifying for a loan and being able to absorb that loan through a job loss, a medical event, or a rate reset are completely different things. The question is never, can I make this payment right now? The question is, can I make this payment for 12 months with 30% less income? If the answer is no, that's the real answer. Fourth, you watch the signal, not the noise. Credit card delinquency rates, personal savings rate, yield curve. These are the numbers that tell you what's actually happening to real people, not to the stock market, which can stay cheerful long after the foundation has cracked. The yield curve inverted in 2022. It has correctly predicted every recession since 1955. Nobody rang a bell then either. So let's come back to Kevin. It's 2026 now. Kevin is 54. He rebuilt. It took 7 years, but he rebuilt. He doesn't own a home anymore. He rents. He's okay with that. What he owns is a 6-month emergency fund he's never touched. A retirement account he kept contributing to even through the hard years, and a very clear understanding of the difference between what he can afford and what someone will lend him. He learned all of that the hard way, at a cost of years, and a home, and a lot of sleep. You don't have to learn it that way. The patterns are visible right now. The signals are there. Not certain, nothing in economics is certain, but visible. And the single most powerful thing you can do with that information is not to predict the crisis. It's to make sure that whatever happens, whether this is 2008 again or something different or nothing at all, you are not the person making desperate decisions because you have no buffer and too much debt and no plan. Because that's who 2008 really hurt. Not the banks, not Wall Street. Kevin. Here's what I want you to do before this week is over. 1. Check your savings buffer. Do you have 3 months of expenses in cash? If not, that's the first number to build toward. 2. Write down every debt you carry. Balance, rate, Minimum payment. 1 page. Know the actual number. 3. Ask yourself Kevin's question. Can I make every payment I currently have for 12 months on 30% less income? Whatever the honest answer is, that's your real financial position. You don't need to predict anything. You just need to not be the person who gets caught off guard. And if this gave you a new way to see what's happening right now, subscribe, because next week we're going into something that connects directly to this. We're breaking down why the middle class keeps shrinking, not slowly, not gradually, but why economists are now saying the squeeze is accelerating, and what the families that are making it through have in common. That one's going to change how you see your own situation. I'll see you in that one.